Hey, what's up? What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. It's Wednesday, right? Happy Wednesday. And thank you, beautiful people, for coming in. It's another episode of the Jayson Estrera Show, where we talk about basketball, sports, and every topic that comes our way as accurate as possible. And as always, it's your host, Jayson Estrera. Now, for today's show, we had a wild ending to the Boston Celtics Indiana Pacers Eastern Conference Finals Game 1 last night. And Boston steals a home game. And we'll also preview what this Mavs Wolves Western Conference Finals might potentially look like. And hey, I mean, there wasn't too much going on yesterday. Honestly, I just kind of chilled out with no playoff games last night. Or the night before, just chilled out most of yesterday. Got some of the new look, and yeah. So let's just get right into it. Last night we saw the Boston Celtics, like I said, steal Game 1 at home. They took the game in overtime, 133 to 128. For the Boston Celtics, Jayson Tatum ended up with another double-double. He had 36 points and 12 rebounds with 4 assists and 3 steals. Shot 12 of 26 from the field, 2 of 8 from 3, 10 of 12 from the free throw line. Again, getting to the line a lot and consistently. His running mate, his sidekick, Jaylen Brown, had 26 points, 1 block, 3 steals, 5 assists, and 7 rebounds. Shot 10 of 20 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3, and a big one at that. 5 of 8 from the free throw line. And then a surprise, Jrue Holiday, with the most points that he scored all season long, had 28 points, 3 steals, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds. He shot 10 of 16 from the field, 4 of 8 from 3, and 4 of 4 from the line. For the Indiana Pacers, they had 3 players in over 20 points as well. Tyrese Halliburton had 25 points and 10 assists with 3 steals, a block, 3 rebounds, and 3 big turnovers. He shot 8 of 18 from the field, 6 of 14 from 3, 3 of 3 from the line. Miles Turner added in 23 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 blocks, which is really nice to see him get 10 rebounds. I've been on him a lot because, like I said, for a big guy, he just does not average a lot of rebounds. But he shot 9 of 13 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3, 2 of 2 from the free throw line. And Pascal Siakam added in 24 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists, 12 of 23 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3, and no free throws. Yeah, it was a great game, especially going into the end. So without before talking about it some more, let's go see what actually happened in the end.
Burton gonna have to launch it. Goes up and under. Oh, he banks it in. He banks it in. That's the screen. Nembhard pulls back inside the arc jumper. It's good. Resilience.
What a shot. Starting it right in the third and then the end of the fourth.
Holiday backs it up. White.
Awful shot right there. They had just gotten the ball back, and if you could see, they're down 3 with a minute left, or oh no, it was already a little bit past that. There was like 40 seconds left, down 3. And he had just forced up a shot.
White on the drive. Nembhard pulls back inside the arc jumper. It's good. Resilience. White on the drive, gets
What
inside.
a pass.
Speed, Holiday banks it.
But right here, there's a minute left, down 3, and there's no reason. I would have much rather him be aggressive, getting to the cup and potentially hitting a wide open Al Horford. It was one of the mistakes that they made down the stretch, among other things. Nembhard was huge.
Horford pulls up jumper, puts it in. White throws it up, nearly stolen by Neesmith. Tatum,
Huge miss right here.
Nembhard, the rebound,
and then this.
Down, and able to get it to Halliburton. They don't have to foul yet. Neesmith
He was looking away. I don't know if you guys see it, but he was trying to make the play before the play was there. Looking away, and just before this, probably like around the minute marker, a little bit before that, Jrue Holiday had just forced Halliburton into another turnover. Just locked him up on the left side of the floor. So I don't know if that had something to do with this, but he was definitely looking for Jrue Holiday, and he probably wanted to get a move early, and he just mishandled the ball.
They still have a timeout if they can't.
This was huge right here. They wanted to pass to Hallie. I don't know if the Jrue Holiday effect. Instead, Nembhard chooses to pass to Siakam, and Jaylen Brown just being active causes this. And clearly Siakam thought that he had touched that ball last because he had gone for it initially. He would have just put a hand up and said, "Hey man, I didn't touch that shit." And so yeah, that was a massive play, a blunder on their part. Siakam was a part of that, and he's also a part of this.
Him trying to get free, throwing in the corner. Brown fakes, fires up the 3.
Unbelievable shot, man.
Drives inside the arc. Final seconds. Halliburton just gets it off, flings it up. Shot, no. Nembhard drives into the paint.
That was tough.
By Horford. Tatum picks it up.
Tatum had 10 points in the overtime.
Down. Tatum wanting it. Gets it inside. Tatum across the lane. Count it. Halliburton chasing White. White continues down the lane. Up to Tatum. Sidestep. Three-pointer puts it up.
Yep.
Right on top of him. Siakam the drive.
And Brown rips it.
Picked up by Brown. Brown to go in the backcourt. Quickly gets it to Holiday. Holiday back to White, and he lays it up and out in the corner. Siakam in the lane. Flips it up. Shots it, and that'll do it. The Celtics survive in overtime.
So Boston steals game 1 on their home floor. That's not what you typically like to that's not what you typically say about the home team in that situation, right? But they steal their own game 1. And I didn't even get into the first half. Obi Toppin had a great first quarter. I think he had like 11 points. Let's see right here. Yeah, he had 11 points, shot 5 of 6 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3. And then the second quarter, we saw Miles Turner have a perfect quarter. He went 5 of 5 from the field, 2 of 2 from 3 for 12 points. And still, with those two guys doing what they were doing, the game was tied at 64. And no one had really broken out and gotten loose for Boston. It felt as if they were still coming back from a vacation. I'm gonna be honest with you, that's what it felt like. And when they wanted to turn it on and stop an Indiana Pacers run, they were able to do that with their defense by running these sets and their plays that they just know what to do in certain situations. Boston did a great job of matchup hunting last night, especially down the stretch. And you know, more on the execution part. I think that was the difference between the Boston Celtics and the Indiana Pacers in the end. It just the turnovers are one thing for the Pacers, right? Halliburton hasn't had to face someone like Drew Holiday up until this point of the playoffs. I mean, there was Patrick Beverly and Lillard, but it wasn't the same type of series, right? Drew Holiday is not only a defender, but the last couple games he's shown his offensive side as well. So he's being aggressive, ultra aggressive. And then when you look at the turnover to Siakam, not fouling Jaylen Brown in the corner. I mean, I get it, right? I get it.
Get free.
He's wide open, right? You got to just wrap him up. And I get that it's a split-second decision. I don't know what conversation you guys are having in the huddle, but
The corner.
you don't even contest it. You just wrap up both of his arms and don't even let him shoot. And I get that it's a split-second thing. I get that it's really, really hard to do. However, I think it's a part of your job as a coach to really remind these guys and to drill that in.
Brown fakes, fires up the three.
There was a situation in the overtime. I don't remember if it was Holiday and White or if it was Brown and White, but they were trapping Indiana. You know, they were pressing them, and they had got caught in between, right? And as soon as White switched onto the guy that was ahead, it wasn't even a thought. He just wrapped him up and fouled him right away. The inbound plays that right, this inbound play right here, this inbound play,
On the back.
he's already like, this is a communication thing, right? Because he's already face guarding White. Halliburton doesn't need to cover this. You should be covering this side because he's making sure that Drew Holiday don't get over the top. The Celtics realize that.
Backcourt.
Drew Holiday gets this ball. He's looking for either Tatum to come around this way or for White to come this way. Tatum does a great job of recognizing that White already beat Nembhard and just stays put instead of also moving to the side, because what happens here is
To go in the backcourt, quickly get to the.
he's already going towards him. All Tatum would have done is made this area more crowded. So him staying here, split-second decisions are so
Holiday.
key.
Holiday back to White, and he lays it.
And they just executed that perfectly. At no point, I mean, I obviously picked the Boston Celtics to win game one. I started to get a little bit nervous, but at no point did they look nervous. I think they looked more disappointed in themselves. Jaylen Brown talked about how they need to be better. That's what he kept saying, that they need to be better. They have to be better for game two. They didn't look surprised that they won. They weren't super frustrated when they were making mistakes and also getting really bad turnovers. Tatum had a really bad one that he threw away at half court, which then led to a Derek White foul. Halliburton, he got 3 free throws at the end of the fourth, and they still came back from that. They showed a lot of poise, and they showed an emphasis on execution, not so much the emotions of the game, because there is so much emotions in the game. They simply executed, and that, to me, that shows The execution part shows that they're a championship caliber team. However, throughout these playoffs, I don't know how many games they've played a good 48 minutes of basketball. They've been good enough to blow out a Miami Heat with no Jimmy Butler and a Cleveland Cavaliers that's, let's be honest, isn't very good. Mitchell missed the last 2-3 games, blowing those two teams out by 20 points a game, 19 plus points a game. They're that good that I don't even think they've played that many great 48 minutes, a full game of basketball. They can turn it on and off against these lesser teams. But what happens when they run up against a Luka Doncic and a Kyrie Irving or Anthony Edwards? And I'm not trying to look too far ahead, right? Because obviously Boston has to clean things up. However, they had a bad game last night and they were somehow able to take that win. Now, we've seen in the last two series that they're going to have one dud. They're going to have one game where they basically don't show up. And they almost gifted this to Indiana. So what I thought was going to be a 4-1 was almost guaranteed to be a 4-2. It was almost guaranteed last night to be a 6-game series. I think it was really tough that Indiana lost that last night. You had solid contribution out of Obi Toppin, and your three guys were all able to get going. You had a team that hadn't played since last Wednesday, and you guys, I said it before, even though you've played, 3 games in the last 5 nights, 2 of those games were very, very easy. Game 6 and Game 7 against the Knicks were both blowouts. You weren't super drained. Your guys were able to rest a little bit. It wasn't an emotionally draining process. So they came into this game ready to play. How will they respond? It's been like, I think it's been the game 2s that the Celtics have just been awful in. Let's see. Let's see. Where's the bracket, bro? There you go. Celtics 4-1. It was game 2 against Cleveland. And it was also game 2 against Miami. So is this the Indiana Pacers' chance to take a game? They know they should have won last night. So going into game 2, are they going to be down on themselves, or are they going to be confident looking to steal game 2 and go back into Indiana 1-1 where they've played great? Or are the Boston Celtics looking at themselves like, fuck, man, we barely won this game. We need to clean a lot of things up. And if we do, or when we do, this Indiana Pacers team really can't mess with us. And that, to me, that's how it looks and feels. Boston, like I said, did a great job of matchup hunting because they have different matchups that they can exploit. TJ McConnell and Halliburton, Drew Holiday can take either one of them into the post. Tatum was taking everyone into the post except for Pascal Siakam. Jaylen Brown, the same thing. It's a tough matchup. And then on defense, we saw when Boston wanted to turn up their defense, as great as an offensive team this Pacers team has been, they can match up with them because, like I said, they have size. They have size 1 through 5. They have length. And so I think it was really big that Indiana dropped game 1. Because they really had an opportunity. Right? I think, I have Boston winning this series 4-1. I think it's only going to go 5 games. But when they look at the end of the series, I think they're really going to kick themselves over game 1. Game 1 is going to be one of those like, fuck, we could have. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. It's going to be one of those games. And, hey, man, those were, like I said, 3 really bad turnovers for the Pacers. I don't expect that to happen consistently. However, on defense, I like those matchups for Boston. I'm not saying they're going to dominate it on defense, but Drew Holiday on Halliburton. I don't know if they're going to start putting Tatum on Siakam because Siakam was still doing a solid job. Like he's still able to score. His mid-range has been so great from the free throw line extended. He's been so good. So I would look for that matchup. I want to say Indiana wins game 2 because, like I said, that's been the trend, right? But with the way game 1 played out, I think Boston is going to come back upset. And I think they're going to look to win game 2, trying to really put this series away and kind of snuff the fire out that Indiana has had. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to, man. That was a hell of a game, though. Got treated to the first game of the conference finals was an overtime finish. Back and forth. Like I said, it was tied at the half. The third quarter was back and forth. And then the fourth quarter was just great. I know we talked a lot about Tatum, but before we move forward, I just want to... Jaylen Brown. I've been saying it. He might be the best second option in the playoffs right now. It was him and Jamal Murray for me in terms of just how great they've played, how consistent they've been. And both of them also hit big shots and capable of hitting big shots. And Jaylen Brown showed it last night with the big 3, stealing the ball from Siakam. Again, another 28-point night. It's just, you look up and it's 28. And it's one of those things where you kind of wonder, are you just stopping yourself at 28? Are you capable of doing more? And you're just capping yourself? Is the coach telling you not to, this is the range I want you to score in? Because it seems like he gets there every night. And they have a great team, but it seems like no matter who's going off, he's going to be there with 26 to 28 points, no matter what. He's been so consistent. He's been massive. I got to give some love to Jaylen Brown. Like I said, Drew Holiday was phenomenal. He has a tough matchup with Halliburton. Tatum has been showing the scoring, and a lot of it just had to do with making some shots. He's been really, really aggressive since the middle of the Cleveland series, attacking the basket. His free throws have shown that. He's continued with the double-doubles and the rebounding. I just think Boston has too much firepower. They didn't have a great night and still pulled off the victory last night. So at the moment, I think I got Boston in game 2, but we'll see what that looks like. Amen. That shit was crazy, right? So oh no, that's not what I'm trying to do. Uh, Bam. So, moving on, we have the Dallas Mavericks versus the Minnesota Timberwolves in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals later tonight, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And we have, again, star power. Obviously, we have Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving on one side. But on the other side, we have the Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns duo. And you could even throw, Rudy Gobert is also kind of a star name. Mike Conley. Minnesota has some established pieces. So looking at that series, right? The Minnesota Timberwolves, through the regular season, are 4-1 against the Dallas Mavericks. Let's see. What is this? January 31st, Minnesota Timberwolves won 121-87. January 7, the Dallas Mavericks beat the Timberwolves 115-108. December 28, Minnesota won 118-110. December 14, Minnesota won 119-101. And this is February 13. Dog, that's like the other season. The fuck? Alright, so what is it? 3-1, 4-1. Their last 5 matchups, they're 4-1, right? Let's just say that. So this season they're what? 3-1 in 4 games. And here's the main difference, right? That stat could be skewed because we're talking about a Dallas Mavericks team that has looked different through the playoffs. We have PJ Washington, who's emerged as, that potential third option for them. What's his name? Lively. Is it Jared Lively? Yeah, motherfucking. See right now. So I don't want to just butcher these fucking names. Right. Okay, here. PJ Washington, obviously. Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford have just been such massive difference makers for this Dallas Mavericks team. The alley-oops, the corner three-point shooting. The Minnesota Timberwolves are going to have to solve that puzzle. Right? For me, the first thing to look for is obviously the guard matchups. Anthony Edwards said it already. He's got the Kyrie Irving matchup, which makes sense. Right? He's done a great job on what's his name? Who the fuck were they just playing, bro? On Jamal Murray. Did a great job on Jamal Murray. In spots, did a great job on Devin Booker. Was awesome on Bradley Beal. He's had success on these smaller guards. Now, Jaden McDaniels, after he had Kevin Durant, he last series, I guess he had a little bit of a rest. It wasn't a Kevin Durant matchup, but now he's got Luka Doncic, who's gonna try to draw fouls. He has to not swipe with his hand. And Luka's a big guy. He plays physical. He hits first on offense. He's one of those few guys that initiates the contact on offense. So that's the matchup that we have to look for. Can Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels contain Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving in one-on-one situations? Because when you start having to double team him off of pick and rolls and blitz him, it opens up those alley-oops, opens up those corner threes. When those open up, Luka's step back, his shot, it's a domino effect, and they're masters of picking and choosing when to pull which lever. So Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels are going to have to do a great job of really guarding them one-on-one, but also, like what we've seen against a player like Jamal Murray, someone like Conley coming in on a strong blitz, getting steals, really disrupting him. If Kyrie and Luka are picking for each other, look for some of those times for them to really come out in a hard show, to really force them to make a play. Because obviously when those two guys are doing pick and rolls, they're expecting you to play it straight up, right? Or just switch it. So that would be the first thing that I would look at. It's success on either end, right? If Edwards and McDaniels can win a lot of those on defense, or not a lot of them, but can win a good amount of them on defense, that's going to look good for Minnesota. If Luka and Kyrie can take advantage of those one-on-one matchups, force fouls, force double teams to come, now it opens up the rest of the floor for PJ Washington and Derrick Jones to hit shots, for Lively and Gafford to get alley-oops. That's going to be a huge piece, right? And now when we look on the other side, the Mavericks have done a great job of staying up and down, right? Who did it really well, man? Tyson Chandler used to do it really well. Gobert does a solid job of it, of just staying up and down, not fouling and just contesting. Gafford, Lively, and even PJ Washington do a great job of it. They're tall and they stay tall. So Anthony Edwards, who's had a lot of success attacking the basket, right? I was calling for him to attack these one-on-ones from the wing because he's so fast, he doesn't really need a dribble move. He just gets by people, and it's just a matter of meeting whoever at the rim, right? A lot of times we saw Shea, who's really great at getting shots off in the paint, right? He's got a big body, he's got a bigger frame, long and lanky, very creative with his finishes. Start to get, they were a deterrent for him because obviously he doesn't have the physical gifts that Anthony Edwards has to be able to meet these guys at the rim, but they were just doing such a great job of staying tall and not fouling that it almost made it like there's no reason for him to go in there because they're not going to call the fouls anyway. And so he was living in the mid-range, just choosing his spots, doing a great job of just getting buckets. Can Anthony Edwards force those guys into bad spots. Anthony Edwards is quicker. He jumps higher. So that means those guys, in order to do what they've been doing, they're going to have to early rotate, right? And it's going to be on Anthony Edwards to make those split-second decisions if he's going to go up or if he's going to kick it out to soften that up, right? Because if he hits a couple of those, if you know, he hits Rudy Gobert a couple times, Cat, one of these guys, PJ Washington is probably going to be guarding like McDaniels or something. If they hit a couple of those shots, it's going to give Anthony Edwards that split second to get to the rim. And sometimes that split second is going to be the difference between Gafford or Lively being a little bit off of their spot. And now what was a non-foul turns into a foul because now you're reaching a little bit, you're leaning over. But it's really going to depend on Anthony Edwards when he beats his guy, that split second in the mid-range. Is he going to attack all the way or is he going to pass it off? Is he going to float? He's going to have to make that read and figure that out. Because like I said, they've done a great job, a great job of just meeting guys at the rim and not fouling. Although, like we were talking about, you know, so now we're talking about the bigs. The thing about them is the Pelicans, both the Pelicans and the Thunder obviously don't have Rudy Gobert or Karl Anthony Towns or Naz Reid. They have big bodies. So I was talking about those alley-oops. How do those alley-oops look with Rudy Gobert in that mix? With Karl Anthony Towns in that mix? Naz Reid has shown a great job of being able to just be active and be a big body. Obviously, he's not as big as Cat and Gobert, but another big body. So how will that look? You know, will the Minnesota Timberwolves be able to seal those guys to open up some lanes for Anthony Edwards? And can they stop some of those alley-oops and disrupt them? Those are going to be, to me, those are going to be the keys to the game. Right? We want to question some of the role players, but I think we've also seen PJ Washington has shown you that he's going to have multiple really good games. Lively and Gafford are extremely active. They're going to get you rebounds. They're going to be an active body. They're going to get dunks and they're going to get putbacks. Those things that I had questions about, they've shown and proven that they, like I said, can be consistent. Minnesota Timberwolves have just taken down the defending champions. Also showing that they can win under so many different circumstances as well. Anthony Edwards shot 6 of 24 in Game 7 and they won the game. So it's really going to come down to those two things, right? Can Edwards and Jaden McDaniels stop the initial point of attack with Kyrie and Luka? And on the backside, how do those matchups look like, right? Now, for me, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves winning this series. I have the Minnesota Timberwolves winning tonight in Game 1. I made those Anthony Edwards as Michael Jordan videos not because of hype. Not because somebody else said it. It's because I really believed it. And I really believe it. That he's that good. And I understand the comparisons get a little bit annoying. However, there is some truth to it. And he has great physical tools and abilities, has a mid-range game, but obviously their games are still a little bit different. And to me, the biggest difference between Michael Jordan and Anthony Edwards at 22 is, even though Anthony Edwards might feel like he's the best basketball player in the world right now, he also really trusts his teammates. And yes, maybe if Michael Jordan had, these guys on his team, maybe he'd trust them too, but we can't prove that. Anthony Edwards at this point of his career has shown that he trusts those guys, and those guys have come out and performed. I think that for the Minnesota Timberwolves, Karl Anthony Towns has been the X factor, but in this series, he has to be the one, in my opinion. On defense, I'm going to expect either Derrick Jones or PJ Washington to end up sticking Anthony Edwards, and they're going to hide Kyrie Irving and somehow try to put him on like Mike Conley or some shit. It's going to be a whole weird thing. There's going to be a ton of mismatches, in my opinion, for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Can they take advantage of them? They have the best defense through these playoffs. If Luka Doncic isn't playing like Luka Doncic in the regular season, the Dallas Mavericks are going to have a long series. Kyrie Irving, though, I still think he's a great basketball player, because even though he didn't score much in last series, he showed so many other tools. He just showed his experience and his knowledge, right? Being effective without scoring the basketball. But I don't know if they could do that in this series. Unlike the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Timberwolves have two legitimate all-stars. And a Mike Conley that is just a super veteran. He just knows. I highlighted it the other day when he had a wide open shot on the left wing in the first quarter of Game 7. Instead, passed it off to Anthony Edwards in the left corner. The presence of mind to understand that you're going to need your superstar in this game. And yes, Anthony Edwards ended up shooting very poorly, but understanding that you need to keep your superstar engaged. Because Anthony Edwards also hit a big three at the end of the game. 6 of 24, but he had a massive one at the end and a couple of layups. Stayed engaged in the game. Obviously, we've seen Anthony Edwards. He doesn't need anybody, right? He doesn't need anyone on his team to get him going. Still a veteran move. And, I got the Minnesota Timberwolves winning the series in... It's looking like another 7-game series, man. I got the Minnesota Timberwolves in 6. They take care of the Dallas Mavericks in 6 games. They win tonight in Minnesota. They win tonight, and then we'll go from there. So I got the Boston Celtics in 5 and the Minnesota Timberwolves in 6, and I have the Minnesota Timberwolves winning tonight's Game 1. Bow! How you like me now? How you like me now? Yes, so I guess we can move on to this next part. All right, so for this next topic, we're gonna talk about. We're gonna talk about what's the difference between a superstar and an all-star, and I'll add another thing to that, which is a megastar. And this conversation really stemmed from a conversation that they were having on Gil's Arena 2 days ago, I believe. So let's take a look at it here.
All the time, make him sound good for once.
I said exactly. He is not a superstar.
Talking about Jalen Brunson.
He's not the number one guy on a championship team.
Okay.
So, what are you gonna say again? What are you asking me?
Is he a superstar now?
How many times are we gonna keep asking? Do we know what a superstar is? It's nothing. That's not your play. It's who you are. A superstar doesn't get drafted in the second round.
So that was a heated debate that they were having, but I think I can fix it, right? So let's just start with what they were talking about, right? Is Jalen Brunson a superstar, number one? And number two, is Jalen Brunson a number one option on a championship team, was what Gilbert Arenas was saying. So I guess to start by distinguishing the two things, right? Someone that's a superstar and a number one option. A number one option, I believe, is your go-to player on your team. Now, just because you're a number one option on one team doesn't mean that you'll be the number one option on another team. Does that make sense? Like, Trae Young is the number one option in Atlanta, but if he were to move to LA, he would turn into the second, maybe the third option. Goes to the Spurs, maybe he's the number one option, but that's depends on Wemby's development. Jalen Brunson, if on the Knicks he's the number one option, if he were on like the Boston Celtics, probably not the number one option. If he were on like the Miami Heat, probably the number one option. It really depends on the situation that you're in, right? Bad teams have number one options that are not true number one options. Not saying the Knicks are a bad team, right? Number one option on a championship team, statistically, throughout the history of the NBA, there have only been, 9 out of 76, I think, that were where a point guard was the best player, the number one option of a team. The Steph Curry, it happened twice, right? Chauncey Billups, and even that's debatable. Isaiah Thomas did it twice. Magic Johnson had a couple MVPs in the finals, and then the other one would have been Tony Parker. But here's the thing. Tony Parker, not the real number one option or the best player on those San Antonio Spurs team, even with an older Tim Duncan, right? Chauncey Billups is debatable because even though he took a lot of shots down the stretch and was nicknamed Big Shot, anyone that remembers knows that their entire offense was predicated upon Rip Hamilton's movement, right? Isaiah Thomas was legitimately the number one option on those teams, and even though Joe Dumars, don't forget this, Joe Dumars was the MVP of that second one, but the guy for that team the entire season Isaiah Thomas, night in, night out. And like I said, the only reason you take Magic Johnson out of this conversation, in my opinion, is because he's not a small point guard. He's not a 6'4" and under point guard. He's 6'9". The issue with that is taller players can cause more mismatches. Smaller players, you could just try to put someone a little bit bigger on them. Can contain them and make their shots difficult. You don't have that luxury against a taller star player, a taller number one option. I would agree with him that Jalen Brunson is not a number one option on a championship team. I didn't even have the Knicks going to the championship this year. If Jalen Brunson, with how good as he has been, if he's your second option, that means that team is fucking phenomenal. And it really just comes down to size. Pair him up with like an Anthony Davis. Him up with like a Jokic. Bam Adebayo. Right? Bam would probably be the only one where he's still the number one option. We'll have to see how Julius Randle, shows up next year. Right? But that's the distinction between a superstar or a star and a first option. Right? You could be a star, have stardom, and not necessarily be a number one option. Right? Right? So let's do it like this, right? To me, these are the tiers. There's a mega star. Then you have superstars. Then you have all-stars. And then you have stars. You guys should probably write this shit down somewhere, dog. How can I separate this into... Okay. Star, right? All right. So, here I'm trying to do this on the fly. So, in my opinion, there's only two mega stars, and that's LeBron James, Steph Curry, right? Because in my opinion, to be a mega star, and there's very, very few, there have been very few, right? Through the 90s, I want to say there was only one megastar, and that was Michael Jordan. The 80s, you had Magic Johnson. And like Larry Bird was great, but I don't even know if you can consider him a megastar. Right? And then through the 2000s, you had you had Kobe. LeBron emerged, and then maybe Shaq was a megastar. Because this is what how I define a megastar, right? They have to have the numbers and the stats. Like, they have to put up phenomenal numbers, even historic numbers potentially, right? They win rings eventually, but then the other part is they have to also have the popularity, the marketability, the personality. Like, all of those things have to align. That's why there's very, very few, right? Like, you could have a player that has phenomenal numbers, but maybe they're not necessarily breaking records, not getting championships, so they're capped off, right? Maybe you have someone that's extremely popular, numbers are solid, but not where it should be, right? And then that's why everyone starts falling into these other that's why people start falling into these other categories, right? So for me, those are the only two megastars that we have. Superstars. To me, maybe I'm missing some, but for me, it's this. Kevin Durant, Giannis, Luka, I think Jayson, I'll put him at the end actually because I have a reason for it. Kyrie. Those are the main guys that I have, and then everyone else has an asterisk. So Tatum, how do I put a fucking Tatum, Anthony Edwards, Ja Morant, LaMelo Ball, and Wemby. Right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I'm missing one actually. Right here. Jokic. So in my opinion, these are the superstars that we have. Kevin Durant, Giannis, Luka, Kyrie, Jokic, and then I start having the asterisks, right? Tatum has an asterisk because he's had great numbers, has great success. He's on Jordan brand. But I'll be honest, if he wasn't in Boston and Boston wasn't such a massive market in basketball, I think he'd be getting even less recognition. Because he's not even a top MVP. He's not even a top 3 in MVP voting. Even with the success that their team had. He always seems to kind of get overlooked. Right? So even with how great he's been, I think he gets an asterisk because I think he's an all-star, but he gets bumped up because of where he is, right? It's just a massive market. I mean, I guess before we get into this, Kevin Durant, I think it's obvious, right? If we look at, I have it right here. Let's see. Right, so even according to StockX, in terms of their sales in 2023 and 2024, Kevin Durant had a lot of sales in his basketball shoes, right? Obviously, Kobe still dominates. Kobe's have been dominating the basketball shoe space. Kevin Durant was still in it, right? Kyrie Irving, despite what the NBA feels about him, despite how people feel about him, he has that style where someone says it's he's your favorite player's favorite player. That's Kyrie Irving. He always does something amazing that ends up, his highlight ends up getting millions and millions of views. His style, he resembles a regular human being, kind of like the way Steph Curry does. You can work on your handle and try to be like Kyrie. Kids have always loved him. His sneakers have always sold really, really well. His new one is a great looking shoe. In my opinion, Kyrie is still in this because of all of those things. Because no matter how much the NBA or basketball or whatever you want to call it, the powers that be have tried to edge this guy out, the fans have dictated otherwise. People love the way he plays. People love him on the basketball court. His shoes, his style. A lot of people just love it. And it shows, right? In my opinion, for a long time, it almost looked like they were trying to put him into that megastar role because, like I said, his shoes, all the kids wanted. Everyone wants to play like Kyrie. Everyone, he's just one of those kinds of players. For me, the only thing about him is his production has never been megastar level. He's good for 22, 23, 24 points per game. He's never been a 30-point per game guy, despite, the best ball handler ever, best finisher, most clutch. Despite all of these titles and all of these things that people say about him, and he's capable of scoring. We've seen him have big games. I just don't think it's in his personality type to take 25, 30 shots a night. He's just this very chill, zen, peaceful dude that has this dark side of super competitive, but it's as if that dark side only comes out towards the end of games or crucial moments of games, right? Otherwise, he's this kind of chill, mild-mannered person, and it shows in his game, right? Super creative. His shoes show that. He can manipulate the game in ways that, are of the best players. But like I said, his numbers have it has never matched what we think about him. I don't think. The way I talk about him, the way players talk about him, if there was no name to it, you would think that this guy was scoring 30, 28 plus points a game for his entire career. And that's just not the case, right? In the last series, we saw him have games at 9, 10, 11 points, right? His production just isn't on that level, but his fandom, even with the NBA trying to diminish it, even with all the backlash he's had through the years, jersey sales, views, sneakers, it all still shows that he's still on that level. Giannis, I think that's self-explanatory. Numbers are phenomenal. Has a championship, multiple MVP award winner, but also has that. He has the duality in his personality, right? Super fierce competitor, aggressive, strong, vicious on the NBA court, on the basketball court. But off the court, it's this funny, fun-loving dude, right? It's only recently where, you started seeing cracks in his armor where people are talking about he complains too much or this, that about him. But up until this point, he's the guy that everybody loves, right? Everyone would love to have him on their team. Works hard, plays hard. Numbers have been great. MVP, best play. He has all of the qualities and the names, right? And off the court, everyone loves him. So easily a superstar. Luka Doncic, at his young age, is also, the fans love him. ESPN and the NBA can't stop posting this dude. Can't run, can't jump, killing the league. He obviously has the numbers and the stats, but he also has There's something about him that people just love, right? And I think because of those two things, I think his numbers are even more phenomenal than his personality. And that's what puts him in this superstar range, right? Where is this dude? Oh, here. Maybe I can find this over here. All right, the top 10 most viewed players, right? Doncic is 4th, Curry is 2, LeBron is 1, Steph, Kyrie is 5th. It's just, it speaks for itself, right? Jokic, I think it's probably the first time I would kind of really put him on this list. His numbers would say megastar, right? His consistency would say megastar. The personality is just so, his personality is a star damn near, right? His numbers are just that amazing. Got a championship, has the MVP awards. But even then, someone like Jokic, if he has a bad year, he could fall off to damn near like an all-star popularity, right? So I think he barely gets in this category. And then after him, Tatum, we discussed a little bit. Anthony Edwards, if you watch the pushes there, I've been talking about it. Everyone has been talking about it. His shoes are doing phenomenal. Everyone has views, his views are phenomenal. He has spectacular plays, has great numbers. He's a player right now where I think his popularity, his rise, his potential is kind of outweighing his numbers because he's so young in the league still, right? But he's everywhere. He has that aura. He has that star power. Always says something funny in interviews. Always makes reporters laugh. He has it, right? He has what they say, that it factor. Anthony Edwards has it, and that's why he's asterisk is on that list, because he could still fall off of it, right? Ja Morant is the same thing. If you look at the let me see. Right, look at this shit, man. Ja Morant, he didn't even play this year. Number 11. So yeah, for me that's self-explanatory. He's right up there. The kids love him. If it wasn't for the gun stuff, his popularity would be even bigger. But I think he's still, that's how popular he is. That he's still in this superstar lane, right? Asterisk, obviously. LaMelo Ball is the same. His shoes do great. Jerseys. Has this flashy style, kind of like similar to Ja. Numbers aren't astronomical, right? He's not putting up MVP numbers. Not even on a great team, but the popularity that he has playing in Charlotte is amazing. I think it puts him in that superstar light, right? Imagine him in like a New York City or like in a LA. It would be amazing. You would think he was the MVP of the league. And Wemby is the same thing, but mostly, I should have said this about Giannis, the international factor. he does things on the basketball court also that we have never seen before. Right? He does things that it's like whoa. And so I think he has potential as a rookie, right? So many views, rookie of the year. People were talking about him being defensive player of the year. First rookie on an all defensive team. He's potentially in that, he's in there. He's in there off of just pure name right now. Right? Now, as we go to the All-Stars, this gets a little interesting, right? Because we have Dame, Embiid, Harden, Russ, Kawhi, PG, Clay, CP3, Draymond, AD. Who else we got? Brunson, Cat, Jaylen Brown, Trae Young, and then for me, okay, so it would be the Brown, Trae Young, Donovan Mitchell, and SGA. So to me, these guys are... Can I put a fucking asterisk? No, I don't think that's gonna work. Right. So Dame, Embiid, Harden, Russ, Kawhi, PG, Clay, CP3, Draymond, AD, Brunson, Cat. Excuse me. To me, those guys are your all-stars. Dame has put up superstar-like numbers, but has never been that popular. He missed a couple all-star games before because of popularity in the West, even though his numbers were up to par. He's just never been at least to the public, and when it comes to popularity, his name has never been like that. It was only ever in Portland, right? Embiid, who, in my opinion, is a superstar player, right? And a couple years ago, especially with the process, everyone loved how funny his personality was when he trolls. He was in that superstar mold. However, hey Bubs. However, more recently, I think his popularity has taken a hit. He's become more of a villain and has kind of been knocked down, in my opinion. I think he was a superstar, even in game and in popularity, but he's been knocked down because it feels as though a lot of people have been hating him as well too. And it goes, for me, it's the same thing with Harden and Russ. Do I think that those guys are superstar players and people? Yes. Recently, no. Harden's numbers have fallen, right? It wasn't those MVP numbers that we've seen. And with that, I think his popularity has kind of tanked. The defense has never gone away. Him switching from team to team, I think his popularity, his credibility has taken a hit. The way Russ has turned into almost a bench guy, from an MVP to a bench guy. Do I think he's an all-star? No, I think he's a superstar. But at this point in time, his popularity You know, to me, Embiid, Harden, and Russ are kind of like the villains of the NBA. Right? It keeps them relevant and popular, but that's what also keeps them from being superstars, because they don't get that as much love as you think they should get, right? Kawhi is in there because people are intrigued by him. He's quiet, and it's turned into like this personality that people like. Everyone says he's funny. When he's in the game, he's great. Champion. He's a star, but the fact that he has the success as an NBA champion, I think pushes him into an all-star. PG, Paul George, to me, kind of always stayed in this range. There was a time where he was flirting with the superstar category. But to me, PG is kind of like a solid all-star, moderately popular. He's another one where he's like your favorite player's favorite player, but he's very quiet. Like, he's a low-key person when it comes to that. I don't think a lot of people are aware that that's how people feel about Paul George. I think his shoes do pretty well. His podcast helps him. Popular podcast. Excuse me. But yeah. All-star. Klay Thompson. Name value. Honestly, you could probably drop Klay to a star. Honestly, I think I'm kind of trolling with having him an all-star. Because the reality is, Draymond is only on this list because he was choking people out all year and because he has a podcast. Those are the only two reasons why. I had a fucking 3 fingers, but those are the only two real reasons why. And his, you know, he has a household name with Steph Curry. But let's be honest, that's really the reason why. And even CP3, he's still on all the commercials, but even he's been very... You could even put CP3 into like a star. Like, I think he's been bumped down. AD, even though he's a champion, the thing about him is the injuries, right? Not necessarily a bad thing that people hate on it, but people do hate on him for it. And then the other side is people are like, man, we see potential. And the other part is it's become a narrative, even though it's not true, and he's playing 70 plus games a year. I think AD is an all-star. Brunson is newly an all-star. First year all-star this year, right? I think he's the first year all-star. Just new into that category, right? Cat, I think, always kind of had a personality, has a game that's great, puts up numbers. The zesty shit about him online, I think, kind of puts him into this all-star category. I'm not gonna lie to you. And then the other part for me is Jaylen Brown gets an asterisk because if he wasn't in Boston, he would definitely just be a star. Even with his numbers, he's a quiet dude. Don't have any signature shoes or like anything branded like that. Asterisk because I think he would only be a star because of his play, right? Not his popularity. Trae Young also gets hated on. Puts up solid numbers. No one really likes him. Donovan Mitchell, it's not that no one likes him, it's just no one really talks about him. He went from Utah to Cleveland. Even though he's a bucket, he flirts with being a star. He's one of those, right? And then Shea, the only reason I put him on All-Star is because he had the MVP consideration one and his fits online. If it wasn't for those two things, or even if he was an MVP candidate, if it wasn't for his fits online, no one would give a fuck. And so to me, that's what puts him over the top, right? That takes him from just being a star that puts up phenomenal numbers with no popularity to an all-star, because even though he's quiet, that keeps him relevant in things beyond basketball. And then for stars, I put up some guys like Randall, Bam, Paolo Banchero, Maxi, I think, is newly into this kind of star. I missed someone over here as well too. Cat, Jaylen Brown. Jimmy Butler is a star. He's an all-star. I don't think he's a superstar. His numbers don't warrant it, but his shit talk, his playoff Jimmy shit, puts him in that all-star category. Flirts with superstar. But yeah, man, this is kind of like how I see these players. You have to talk about them on a case-by-case basis. It's not one rule says everything. You got to have this. I think each one is a conversation. And it changes year to year, in my opinion, because a player can have a bad year and the fans can turn on him, and all of a sudden he goes from being someone's favorite player to just another guy in the league. So it really depends, right? And that's how I'm looking at it. Because I am a fan of the game still, even though I do think I look at it differently, I hear some of the noise and I'm like, oh shit, like, yeah, his game says he should be this, but his popularity say otherwise. And so I think this is how this breaks down, and this is how this shakes out. But yeah, oh shit, we've been on here for a minute, bruh. But hey, later tonight we have game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. The Minnesota Timberwolves take on the Dallas Mavericks. Like I said, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves taking that series 4-2 in 6 games, and they are winning game 1 tonight. As always, it's your boy Jason. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good shit. Thank you guys for hanging out with me and listen to me ramble about fucking basketball or whatnot. But yes, I will see you guys later. Thank y'all for watching. Have a great, wonderful, beautiful day. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Thank y'all. Peace.